So welcome, officially welcome everyone to our conversation on airports and tourism development, another phase of extractivism in the African continent. I want to give a special and warm welcome to those who are joining this conversation from Kasese in Uganda. Thank you very much for being here today with us. I'm Daniela, Network Coordinator at Stay Grounded, and I want to first of all acknowledge that this event has been organized by the Center for Citizens Conserving the Environment in Uganda, by Global Forest Coalition, and by the Stay Grounded Network, with the contributions of Nick Hildyard from Corner House in the UK, and Rose Bridger from the Global Anti-Aerotropolis Movement. Also, thank you, Rose, for helping us out today with taking notes. And I think it's very symbolic that we are coming together today to talk about tourism and one of its main pillars, which is airport expansion and aviation, in the exact same week that the tourism industry and its allies are going to celebrate the World Tourism Day on Wednesday. They are going to celebrate their businesses, their profits, their fortune, while we'll be discussing here today the devastation and violations that have been brought upon so many communities and territories around the world in the name of tourism development. We are so used to listen to the same old, tourism will bring business opportunities, which will create new jobs. And that promise, told so many times by governments and industry representatives, very often starts with the construction of an airport. So those governments say an airport will enable tourism to boost, leading to economic growth, and in the end, everyone will be benefited. However, by now, we have gathered enough knowledge and experience that tell us other stories, normally stories of plundering and of extractivism. Stories that start with land grabbing, continue with air and noise pollution, poorly paid jobs, devastating impacts of the climate crisis, and in the end, people having very, very precarious lives, even worse than those they had before the airport or the tourism enterprises establish themselves on their territories. This is the story that is about or could unfold in Kasese, if not met with resistance. With the prospect of the airfield expansion into an international airport comes the dangerous promise of tourism development, while communities have already been displaced to make way for the expansion, and where floods destroy parts of the Kasese municipality every year. So the tourism and the aviation industries that are major contributors for global heating and therefore for the climate crisis that causes those floods are coming to Kasese to make matters worse. But fortunately, there's still time for the people in Kasese to write another story, hopefully through resistance and with a happy ending. And to support that process, we're here today, and we'll have Kwame Poncho from Global Forest Coalition to help us to understand the dynamics of infrastructure projects like airports and tourism and their impacts. We'll hear from Gabriela Begateles sharing her learnings of her long-time resistance against airport expansion in Mexico. And finally, Edwin Mumbere from CECIC, who will guide us through the situation in Kasese, helping us to understand how we can better support their struggle and show international solidarity. Also with Edwin, there are other people there willing to share their stories and their thoughts on this ongoing struggle, and we are very happy to have them with us. And we'll have time for questions after the speaker's intervention, so please keep them for that moment or write them in the chat. And as I said in the beginning, this conversation counts with interpretation, so I just remind everyone to speak relatively slowly to make our interpreters' job possible. So we'll then start to listen to Kwame, who works with Friends of the Earth Togo, is the African coordinator at Global Forest Coalition and also coordinator of the Extractive Industries, Tourism and Infrastructures campaign at Global Forest Coalition. And I'll leave any further presentations to Kwame, and thank you for being with us today, and over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Daniela. Just to correct quickly that I'm now working with Center for Environmental Justice Togo, not Friends of the Togo. Yeah, so thank you for the opportunity. Allow me to share quickly my screen. I hope it's the correct one. Can you see my screen?
Yes, yeah, yes, you can.
Okay. Wonderful. Thank you for the opportunity. As Daniela put it in the introduction, I will just speak about the tourism development and airport expansion. But I will also draw your attention to the link between extractivism and tourism to conclude that tourism is also a model of exploitation, actually. Yeah, so the outline of my presentation will be to understand first extractivism and to discuss about what extractivism is for local communities and indigenous people. And we're going to understand also what tourism is and what tourism development and airport expansion are for communities and indigenous people, and we will conclude. Quickly, I think this is just a recall because you may know what extractivism is. Is a removal of large quantities of raw or natural materials, particularly for exports. So this is targeting outside where the exploitation of the extraction is happening. So it's turned to extend. So extractivism is a mode of accumulation of wealth. So it doesn't care if communities where the extraction is happening, if the communities are in good health or if the communities are benefiting from the exploitation, they don't care. Just it's a model of accumulation of wealth. And this one is based on the exploitation of nature. It is a system of oppression used by extractive industries to dominate the communities that host the projects, to tie the government into a particular system, corporate takeover. And extractivism requires very significant transport network, like roads, airways, railways, canals, airstrips, pipelines, high voltage lines, etc., etc. And thus contribute massively to the energy crisis and to climate change. Having that said, I would like us to bear in mind that then extractivism is a model of accumulation of wealth, it's a model of nature exploitation, it's a model of communities exploitation. And also through extractivism, we have some infrastructures that can be built to take away those natural resources out from the communities or from the countries where those natural resources are exploited. So it means that the community's land is grabbed because of extractivism. So indigenous people land is grabbed. Water, air, and soil are polluted. The environment is degraded, totally degraded. We have communities displacements, and it's forced displacement actually, because it's not a consent. It's not from the consent of the communities. So they are displaced forcibly. We have destruction of communities' livelihoods. We have communities' basic rights violation. Those pictures are clear and very understandable. We see water pollution there. We see land grabbing with forced displacement. We see air pollution. And those gas emission also contribute to climate crisis, to climate change. So just to draw your attention, and we're going to compare quickly tourism and extractivism as well. So what is tourism actually? Tourism, by definition of the UNESCO, is very clear. Is a social, cultural, and economic phenomenon which entails the movement of people to countries or places outside the environment for a personal or business professional purposes. So here we understand clearly that it means people will travel. Okay, traveling from one place to another. And if many people are traveling from one place to another place, we can call it mass tourism. And some people are delighted, interested to learn from people's culture, to learn from communities' culture. So they go there for that interest. Is also a tourism. So those are elite tourists. So they go and they influence also the community's culture. They brought new dynamic into the communities as well. So mass tourism and elite tourism, both are tourism that can influence communities, that can influence the lifestyle of communities, the lifestyle of the countries where people travel to. So it can change the economy of the countries, actually. It can increase some expenses. Some goods can be expensive because tourists are there. So it affects local communities who are, their basic living is not in a standard that's like it's not in the same standard with the tourists that came into their communities. So tourism lead to airport or airstrip expansion, because if people have to travel, for instance, to go to see one place, they have to travel far. If people have to go from Europe to Africa, some take aeroplane, and there should be a construction of airstrip or aeroplane, or if there is already airports or airstrips, it means if the country want to increase its revenue, it means that there should be an expansion to have more people there. So having that said, what tourism development means for communities and indigenous people. So tourism development lead to communities' territory grabs, which include communities' forests and farmlands for infrastructure construction. So because of tourism development, there will be airports or airstrip expansion, or there will be some infrastructures construction that will require more space or more land. So the communities can be evicted, communities can be displaced from their land to enable tourism to be developed. So the infrastructures include roads, hotel, expansion of airports, and also once the airstrip or the airports have to be expanded, so a lot of materials also enter into the play. So some mining can happen to have some materials, and all those things are damaging communities. Tourism development is also lead to excessive use of fossil fuels through transport means, like as I said, airplane, cars. So you travel by all those things and you use fuel. Actually, you are using fuel, you are using CO2 to travel. And if you have to travel much, excessive travel, then you use a lot of fossil fuels that contribute much to the climate crisis as well. So communities' rights are violated because if there is a use of cars, use of fuels, air is polluted. So, but the community needs to be in healthy environments. Soil is destroyed because of those mining to get minerals and to get some materials to construct. Communities' rights are violated because they don't have access to clean water. The access to water, right to water is violated. And the farms are grabbed. Community farmlands are grabbed. And rights to food is also affected by airport expansion because there is a tourism development. So quickly, I want to compare extractivism and tourism. They are not far from each other. Actually, if you see, extractivism, we are thinking the companies or people are thinking of more profits, and tourism countries are thinking of more revenue. We want to get more revenue, so let's develop tourism so people can travel. Extractivism, community displacements. Tourism development, we also have community displacement because there is a need to expand the place, to expand the hotel, to expand the road, to expand the airports. In extractivism, land grabbing to extract. In tourism, we have land grabbing as well to have more space, to have those construction, to have those infrastructures in place. You have infrastructure construction, road, airstrip to take out oil, gas from communities, from countries to abroad, like ECOP pipeline. You see that pipeline that they want to construct from Uganda to Tanzania and somewhere else. So the infrastructure construction also is happening in tourism development, where we have roads, hotel, airports, airstrip expansion, etc. So tourism development is not far from extractivism. I can say that tourism development also is a model of exploitation. If communities cannot benefit from tourism, then it's a model of exploitation. It's a model of communities exploitation. Just to conclude quickly, it is time for us to move away or to stop mass tourism, which seems to be nowadays a model of exploitation. I will leave it there. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Kwame. Thank you for keeping it short and very brief. So we'll have more time in the end for questions and discussion, hopefully. I will just continue right away and move on to Gabriela, who is joining us from Mexico. And she's a co-founder of the group, translated into English, coordinator of original peoples and organizations of Eastern Mexico State. She's part of the Stay Grounded network since its beginning, and she has been pivotal in visibilizing how airports are the continuation of the extractivist model that is very present in Mexico for centuries. And we hope that the struggle that she has been part of can serve of inspiration for our comrades in Kasese. And I leave it to Gabriela also to complete her presentation. And over to you, Gabriela. Gracias. And Gabriela will speak in Spanish, so don't forget to activate your English channel to be able to listen to the translation if you don't understand Spanish.
Bien, gracias. Desde la cuenca del Valle de México,
Thank
saludo
you, everybody, from the Mexico Valley Basin. I want to greet our colleagues Kwame Ponso from Togo and Edwin Mumbere from Uganda. And I would like to thank the Stay Grounded International Network and the Global Forest Coalition, as well as CSIC, for this invaluable opportunity to participate in this seminar, which is focused on airports and tourism development, another phase of extractivism in the African continent, which is being held in virtual mode with Spanish interpretation, but also in person in Kasese in Uganda, in Africa.
Un saludo a todos los
So,
presentes.
hello, everybody. As a member of the coordinator of peoples and organizations of Eastern Mexico State in defense of land, water, and culture, what we call CPOM, we make huge efforts. We are also a member of the National Indigenous Congress, and I would like to express my recognition and solidarity to the people of Kasese for your strength to evidence and make visible at a global level the nefarious business and governmental plans to convert the airfields into international airports with 4 runways, with 4 airstrips, believing that this will boost tourism throughout the country of Uganda, when actually what they are already causing is dispossession, destruction, food insecurity, family indebtedness, forced displacement, and irreversible damage to ecosystems, to biodiversity, to bird species and wild animals, many of them endangered, also to populations, climate, and the atmosphere of the planet.
5 de septiembre de 2023.
Today, September the 25th, 2023, we raise our voice so that the indigenous peoples and communities of Mexico, Latin America, the Caribbean, and the rest of the world know that the inhabitants of Kasese are already being expelled and displaced from their lands, which is a violation of their rights to food, to go live with their families. And this is also leading to health impact, to noise pollution, to CO2 and greenhouse gas emissions due to airplane and associated works, such as gas pipelines, wind turbines, photovoltaic poles, high tension towers, telephone antennas, tourist infrastructure, and gentrification processes, as well as over urbanization that lead to the loss of lifestyles, cultures, and autonomy of the um, population, and the overexploitation of vital natural resources such as water, of which airports require huge quantities for their construction, operation, and future maintenance.
Pero lo que padecen nuestros hermanos de África
But
se
what our
parece
brothers and sisters are suffering
a los
is
engaños,
very similar
injusticias
to
y
the
comportamientos
deceit,
estúpidos,
injustice,
demenciales
and stupid
contra
behaviors
natura
which are
que las
against
empresas
nature
y gobiernos
that companies and governments
que
are
con igual dignidad
conducting
y firmeza venimos enfrentando los pueblos
in
originarios y
Mexico,
comunidades
which we are facing
indígenas
as
de América
indigenous
y
communities
territorios como
in
el de la
America
Cuenca del Valle de México,
and places such as this
donde para
basin in
construir
Mexico.
un nuevo aeropuerto,
Where to build
empresas
new
y gobiernos
airports,
que le sirven
companies and
cometen
governments that
delitos
serve these
federales
companies
como la remoción del suelo natural salino del lago
commit
de Texcoco,
crimes,
el
such
relleno
as the
de
one we've
pozos
suffered in
de los
Texcoco
socavones
with
en las
water
zonas de la
management and
montaña,
its impact
contaminando el
to
agua
communities
subterránea,
and the mountain
el
with
vaciado de
the
cemento a los
subsequent
cauces de
pollution
los
of
ríos
water,
principales de la cuenca que confluyen en el lago,
and
la
also the
destrucción
drying
con
of
dinamita
water
de
in some
más de
basins,
100 cerros,
also the
la
exploitation
tala
with
indiscriminada de
dynamite
árboles,
of lands,
incendios forestales provocados,
also forest
la
fires,
desecación intencional del lago Nabor Carrillo, la muerte de aves
the death
migratorias,
of
de especies
migratory birds
endémicas de
and
plantas y
other
animales,
endemic species of
además
plants
de
and
las
animals,
ideas
in
espurias
addition to
y fraudes
spurious assemblies
agrarios
and
para el
agrarian
arrebato de
fraud
tierras a
for the
campesinos,
seizure of land
el
from peasants,
otorgamiento ilegal
or
de
the
derechos de
illegal
uso
granting of land
territorio
in our
ancestral
ancestral
al
territory
grupo de choque
to the group
paramilitar PRI Antorcha
we call
Campesina,
PRI
la
in Mexico,
simulación de
which is
una
a
supuesta
paramilitary shock group.
cancelación y la
Also, the
construcción
simulation of a
del
supposed
proyecto del nuevo
cancellation and
aeropuerto
construction of the
al
mega
norte de la
project of the
misma
new
cuenca,
airport at
junto
the
a la
north of
base
this
aérea militar de
basin
Santa
next to
Lucía
the Santa
en la
Lucia
zona del
military
lago
air base
Zumpango,
in the
el
area of
despojo
Zumpango Lake,
disfrazado de área
the
natural
disguised
protegida
dispossession
de
of
4.000 hectáreas
4,000
para construir un
hectares
parque
as a
urbano
natural protected
y
area
turístico
to build
mal
an urban
llamado
and tourist park,
ecológico,
wrongly
aquel
called
que
ecological.
continúe la sobreurbanización y
All of
los
this
negocios
will continue
inmobiliarios
the
de los
over-urbanization
grupos de
and
poder
real estate business
político
of the
y
political and
económico.
economic power groups.
Asimismo, y dado
And
que en Uganda
given
se
that in
plantea
Uganda,
una mayor
a
presencia
greater
militar
military presence
para
is
hacer
proposed
cumplir los
to
planes de
enforce
expansión
expansion
y
plans and mega
megaproyectos,
projects,
me gustaría resaltar que en
I'd like
México
to highlight that in
conocemos
Mexico,
la violencia
we are
y la
already
represión
familiar with violence and
que el
repression,
presidente
and
Andrés
that
Manuel
President
López
Andres
Obrador
Manuel Lopez
dio al
Obrador
ejército
gave the
mexicano
Mexican army
la
the
construcción,
construction,
el control,
control,
la administración
administration,
y el beneficio
and
económico de
economic
todos los
benefits of
aeropuertos
all
del
the
país,
country's airports,
de algunos
some
hoteles
hotels,
y
and
destinos
tourist
turísticos
destinations,
y la
as well as
creación
the
de una
creation of a
aerolínea
military
militar.
airline.
En lo nacional, mencionarles que el pueblo
So I
rarámuri
also
de la
like to
Sierra
mention
Tarahumara del estado de Chihuahua,
that the
norte
Rarámuri people of the Sierra Tarahumara in the state of Chihuahua in northern Mexico are now fighting against the construction of the new airport in the indigenous community of Krill. Also, the Mayan people of the state of Quintana Roo in southern Mexico are fighting against the destruction caused by the so-called Mayan train and the construction of the new airport in Tulum, as well as against mass tourism. But the situation in Mexico, which we can also mention that we have been working against all this type of behaviors, we're also focusing on water management because none of the associated works to the Santa Lucia airport and the failed projects in Texcoco have been canceled. So currently in the area of Supango and Tecama, we see the threat of the drilling of many deep wells for the extraction of drinking clean water just to supply the Santa Lucia airport and associated works. However, peoples are going to receive black waters processed in the valley in the state of Hidalgo. Because this has been the reservoir of black waters for decades. I would also like to mention that in Mexico, especially in this mega project of the Mayan train, we see that among fake green solutions, they are relying on natural area or protected area designation just to have more land and exploit their natural resources. Also in our territories in the south of Mexico, we see the overexploitation of some resources, for example, in Chiapas, to make agrofuels. And we are also facing that traditional authorities are being displaced. And this is even a war against indigenous peoples and local communities. Because in spite of everything, we're still alive. And we have proven to be the only people who can live in harmony and respecting our mother nature. We're the only ones who defend our mother culture. So just like our colleagues, our friends in Africa, we will not give up. We will not sell out and we will not give in, especially now that we know that in the fight for the reduction of aviation and for a change towards a fair and environmentally friendly transport, we against this extractivist tourism, we are not alone. Thank you, friends and colleagues from Kasese. Thank you, everybody.
Muchas gracias, Gabriela. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Gabriela.
For your words and for sharing that struggle and experience and knowledge you have been gathering for so long. I would just like to highlight the importance of what Gabriela just said about water, the demand for water that airports really require, and that has been a central element in the struggle in Mexico, but also the tactics that sometimes government use to kind of take by mistake the movements, the mobilized movements to say, yeah, we're canceling the airport, but then building at the airports just somewhere else, and the importance of fighting together with other groups and movements. And this is a very important message, I think, today. And I'm sure Gabriela will be glad to answer any of your questions regarding the organization of this resistance. Yeah, and to continue with our speakers, I'll just now present Edwin Mumbere, who is coordinating at the Center for Citizens Conserving the Environment in Uganda, and who has been articulating with international groups as Stay Grounded to bring attention to recent plans of airport expansion in Uganda. I thank, especially Edwin and others in Kasese who will be willing to talk for, and also for organizing this conversation and their gathering in Kasese, and for all the resistance that you already been putting. And this is a very, very good sign, and we are willing to collaborate. So please, Edwin, go ahead.
Yes, Daniela, thank you so much. And everyone who has presented before me. Well, allow me to start and by saying, Gabriela, what you've said is really encouraging, and we look forward to discussing more with you so that we can know the strategies you've been using back home. Maybe we could borrow a few and implement them here in Uganda. Well, between 2021 and 2022, Uganda received around approximately 270 visitors to the national parks in Uganda. This contributed to 1.5, this was about 1.5 visitors, contributing to 7.7 of Uganda's total GDP. So this encouraged government to open up more air transport, because most of the tourists that were coming into Uganda were mainly from other countries. So government thought that if it improved and brought in new air transport infrastructure, it would make more money. But unfortunately, all the proposed airport expansions located in national parks. For example, the one is going to be constructed in Makshan Falls National Park. This is Uganda's largest national park. And the second one is going to be constructed in Queen Elizabeth National Park. This is Uganda's second largest national park. Just to mention a few, we shall focus on those two. The government started with Kasese Airstrip expansion, and it's now in the second phase. The first phase was to map the areas where they were planning to expand the airport. And unfortunately, the airport is neighboring Queen Elizabeth National Park. So it's not only the communities that are already affected, but the part of the national park is also going to be taken because they really need to expand the width and the length of the airstrip so that it can be able to accommodate bigger planes. So around 400 homes are already affected. 10% of those that are affected are households which are led by women. And already since we are already in phase 2, the government has already marked the homes that are going to be demolished. And I would say that this has also opened up other means of transport that are going to be supporting the airport, because we are seeing the Uganda Railway Corporation also coming into place. It is trying to revive the old railways that had been abandoned for quite some good time. So they are also demolishing, they have also marked and shared notices to homes that are going to be demolished because of reviving the railway line. So all these are coming into place because the government has really come up with a plan of reviving and expanding the Kasese airstrip. And they also feel that the airstrip cannot only survive without other means of transport, because it's going to be a bigger airport, so it will be receiving cargo. So that's when they thought of bringing the Uganda railway. So this is what is at stake. There's a lot of things that are already at stake. One is the livelihoods of the households that are already affected. 2 is the environment. 3 is climate change. 4 is the wildlife in Queen Elizabeth National Park. 5 is the women. The reason why women are coming in is because whenever money is involved and it's between a couple and then the third party who is bringing in the money, the woman is for work. So for some that have so far received the compensation, the women are complaining they have not been able to receive this compensation. It's their husbands that are receiving, yet they are legally married. For those that also don't have the legal document, that is the land title, they're also facing difficulties, and being the fact that they are women, actually they have more chances of facing difficulties because I'll say maybe it's the current setting that we are living in that is actually pushing them away, or it's making some situations hard for them. And then the livelihoods. These are people who are basically been depending on farming. To some that also do petty businesses just because they have harvested, that's when they do some businesses. But all this has been disrupted because they've been forced to go and live in new areas and have been compensated poorly. The compensation has taken quite some good time and the land has appreciated, which is making it difficult for them to acquire a certain piece of land somewhere else. However, the project affected persons have not really taken it so easy. They have gone to court to register complaints about the compensation that have so far received. Since even there are people who are also complaining that the compensation was not adequate, they feel they were cheated because they didn't have all the land titles and other land documents that they were supposed to have. So those that were evaluating their property took advantage of this and really gave them the lowest rates, which is really a problem to them. Third, there's a challenge of access to information, yet it is well stipulated in our constitution that citizens need to access information for as long as it's not classified. All these projects are not classified, so we have requested to access information, but we have failed. Even the communities themselves that were approached, they were not given adequate information on what the government was going to use their land for. Even the Civil Aviation Authority didn't do the environmental impact assessment reports because at some point the community was supposed to be consulted, was supposed to be informed, they were supposed to collect comments from the community members. All these were not in place. I'll stop here for now, and maybe we can get someone from the community also to say something, because I mean, they are present. They really need to share what they have really faced. Thank you.
Thank you, Edwin. And yeah, of course, we are very glad to hear someone who is willing to share and speak with us. The sound is just not very good at the moment in the room.
Maybe I'll inform them to come closer to.
Yeah, maybe it's better. Go ahead. If there is someone, yeah, to talk, you can. I think you just have to be closer to the microphone.
Hello. My name is Brenda. I'm one of the affected people around Kasese.
You have to maybe cut out your audio so we don't hear echoing. But apart from that, is good.
Yes, as I was saying, my name is Brenda, and I'm among the women of Kasese. Personally, I and my neighbors have been affected due to the expansion of the airport. We do carry out farming, but ever since they expanded the airport, they have encroached to Queen Elizabeth, and now the elephants are just now encroaching to our plantations. They are having easy access to our plantations, and it's really affecting us. And some people have been killed. We have some cases whereby those elephants, they come, attack people's homesteads, and they've been killed, and no one has been compensated. Of course, you cannot compensate someone when you've lost a relative or a family member, which is really unfair for us. Thank you.
Thanks for sharing.
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Baruch Brian, and I'm a resident from the communities that have been affected by the airport expansion. My point is that our parents were played around, because these government officials, when they came to know that there is an activity soon happening in our community, they decided to come and buy all the lands around the airport at a cheaper price, because we were denied information, and we couldn't know that there is something big that is soon happening. And our parents were given little payments for their land. Little did they know that within maybe months, this land will be compensated by government. And some were also intimidated when they tried to raise their voices. They were intimidated. Some of our community leaders were also bribed, and then our complaints couldn't go any further. The amounts of money that were given to our parents were so small that we couldn't even get more somewhere else to buy. And now we ended up in rentals, our business disrupted, and all our economic activities were disrupted at all.
Hello, I'm Maska Jacqueline. Here I'm coming for the issue of women, especially our mothers who are displaced during the airfield expansion. The issue was like, for the case of compensation, let me say they paid some little money, but for the side of women, we are not favored. They are not favored like for those of men. They may pay less, of which women need some good money for meeting the basic needs, like needs for caring for their children, buying food. Since they don't have land for farming, they need money for rent. So the issue of compensation was not catered for compared to the male and female ratio. This made them in a state of being poor, which leads to negative effects, like the ladies will go for early marriage, drop out, which will also lead to other side effects. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Kabo Jackie. I have a question. Are there other communities that are facing unfair export expansion, airport expansion?
Thank you. And I mean, I could reply to this, and there are many communities around the world. I think actually I don't want to put anyone on the spotlight, but we have someone here who has been doing an incredible job in mapping and identifying communities around the world, doing this kind of resistance against airport expansion. And we have a map where we gather this knowledge and how communities have fought these projects. And sometimes that happen quite a lot, as you were explaining, that governments try to compensate people financially, but these financial compensations are most of the times not enough, and most of the times also don't come, and governments don't keep their promises, and this has been documented in quite some cases. So I don't know if somebody else in this round wants to share and add something to what I just said and reply to this question.
Thank you.
Hello everyone, I'm in the survey. My issue is about climate change. You know, when there is the airport expansion, they displace people, they end up using their land for other things. So when they are constructing, they tend to pollute our air, water, and the environment at large. So climate change is affected by the airport expansion. Thank you.
Edwin, thank you very much. To all of you, I couldn't catch your names, and I'm sorry for not knowing your names, and I hope that Edwin can then, of course, also let us know who is there and who can we support in our further struggles against this airport. I was wondering, Edwin, if you would like also to hear questions from others attending the webinar. Maybe people have questions to you over there, also to understand how we could better support internationally your struggle, knowing that some people are already in touch with you to support with a potential campaign, international campaign. Is it okay if I open up the room for others to ask questions? Edwin?
Yes, it's okay. It's okay.
Great. So now would be the time for comments and questions from others that would like to add something or ask something. Please don't be shy. You can write in the chat or just turn on your camera or not and speak directly to everyone here. See, Finley, you can go ahead.
Hey everybody, thank you for sharing all of that. Really interesting and quite upsetting facts and things. I'm interested to know if you know, you're saying that the airport expansion is being pushed by the government, but has it become obvious which companies are involved? Is there specific companies that are benefiting from it? And have you been able to have any discussion with them, or has that been quite difficult to find out the information or to contact them?
As we don't have any other question or comment or request to comment, I'll just pass on to you, Edwin, to answer this one and then go on with other questions. Edwin.
Yes. Thank you for the question. Yeah, we have so far known the bank that is that will lend Uganda some money to make sure that these airport expansions come to light, but we have not yet gotten more information on which companies are really going to be involved, on who is going to design the airport itself, on who is going to supply the equipment. This information is still kept away from the public. And when we look at the situation that is happening in Uganda, everything is now changing. It's those that are close to the president that make sure their companies get these big contracts. This is evident in the oil and gas sector. We are seeing companies of those closer to the president getting contracts. If they don't want to get them directly, they make sure they work with an international partner and then they front the international partner. So the world will know that maybe it is a certain international company that has taken over the contract, but in actual sense, it's a politician's local government that has the highest stake in this contract that has been awarded.
Thank you. We have another question from Desmond.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm Desmond Cheshire from Habitat International Coalition. I'm the African Regional Coordinator, and I'm happy to be here. And I sincerely appreciate is really a lot of information from all those presenting, but I'm curious and would like to know, in terms of compensation, which they talked about, what was actually the mode of compensation and the arrangement with the communities? Who are those that involved in the negotiation of the compensation? Was it individually or a committee or community leaders, or who are the people that were involved in the negotiation for compensation, and how was it agreed? It is very important to understand because if you don't know all these aspects, then what do you stand on? So and after that, the host community, that is where this project is carrying out, what is the arrangement in place for the host community? Please, I'll be interested to understand because it's very, very important.
Thank you, Desmond. We'll pass on to you, Edwin, or anyone on in the room that wants to reply to these and reflect upon this on these questions.
I think I can jump in, Daniela, because I've made some quite extensive research on this topic. Yeah, this is what happened. First of all, thank you for the question, but this is what happened. So when government came up with an idea of expanding the airstrip, it needed land. So what it did, it went to the communities that were neighboring the airstrip. It talked to the communities that they wanted more land, and then they showed them the demarcations of which of the amount of land they wanted, actually the homes that were going to be affected. Then they were talking to homeowners directly. They were not talking to them as a community. So which brought in a challenge of each person had his or her own rates. The rate was not uniform, even though you had the same equal amount of land in maybe meters or square meters, but the rates were not the same. So the challenge came in whereby the landowners that were affected didn't have all the legal documents. The highest land legal document in Uganda is a land title. And these community members, actually 90% of them didn't have all these documents. So once you don't have a land title, your bargaining power is automatically reduced. So, on the other hand is the government sent in its land valuer who values the land from his own rates, from government's perspective. He has to defend the government. So he'll give you unfair rates at which you're going to be paid. And to take you a step forward, the government passed a bill in parliament that in case government is interested in your land or there's a project that is going to take place in your area and you're going to be affected and you don't agree with the compensation, the government was given power that it takes your land, and then if you don't agree with the current rates, you collect your money from the courts of law. So this passing of this bill kind of like gave government overwhelming power to do so many things it really wants to do. So I think then it started with the road construction. Now it went into those that are affected by oil and gas in Hoima. Now I'm seeing it applying in everywhere where the government really wants land. Thank you. I hope I've answered the question, Desmond.
Yes. Yeah.
That's great, and we're happy to have you with us from Habitat International, because it's great that we come together from these different perspectives and also help each other in resisting this kind of destructive projects. Also, thank you, Carlos from Colombia, who shared a link in Spanish, but to another case, I believe from an airport. Certainly more knowledge and experience to learn from. I would like to ask if there is more questions or comments in the room. And sorry, there's just a comment, a written comment. So yeah, I see people in the room have more to say. Go ahead. They're still muted. Yeah.
Hi everyone. My question is, how can we stop the unfair airport expansion?
This is a big question, and a very big one we have been trying to answer and to support groups in doing it. There's someone who wants to speak. I don't know if this person has an answer to it. If you have, that's great. What we can do, and I would also encourage others here that have been in this fight for a long time to speak. But what we can do is that community organizing, it's really worth it to stop such projects. We have cases like, as Gabriela was saying, that they partially stopped an airport. I mean, they stopped one project that then was moved to other place, but it was only moved to other place because people were organizing and fighting back. And international mobilization and organization is very important, and really amplifying the struggles internationally. And that's why I think this is the first step, our first step to spread the word and create and raise awareness about what is happening there. And it's good that you're sharing a lot of information, and thank you for trusting us with that information, and also to learn how we can better support you. There was a link, I think Edwin saved that was shared in the chat before, with that map that collect different cases of airport struggles. And there's a lot of information in that map that I think maybe could be useful to organize a collective public gathering to analyze that map and really highlight the struggles that could be helpful for you and that you could also take some learnings from. Yeah, there was, I don't know if anyone wants to say something, add something on this. I don't see any hands. Yeah. There was someone who wanted to speak before, was Carlos. Carlos will speak in Spanish, which is totally fine. So for the English speakers, please activate the English channel and the interpretation button so we can hear Carlos. Carlos, si quieres, adelante. Pues me gustaría mucho escucharte.
So Carlos, please feel free. We'd like to hear you. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for all your perspectives and this important information we're sharing today. And especially from our brother continent or sister continent, which is Africa. Because these are very negative and unfair situations we live due to airport expansions, due to this high impact and elite tourism. And we also have some experience here in municipality close to Rio Negro in Colombia, and we are collectively working with the coalition of inhabitants to coordinate with the government and with human rights organizations to somehow mitigate the degradation of the environment and the negative impacts of these projects. But yet they're still growing and they're facilitating the growth of tourism, of mass tourism. And they're also facilitating more flights from Europe or from the US, for example. And it has a huge impact on communities, including health issues. And we are also having some struggles because they want to build a second expansion of an airport close to the region of Antioquia. And we are starting to see this threat, and there are more than 1,800 inhabitants that might be affected. So, of course, this has a high impact, not just in terms of people, but also for the climate change and the global crisis. So we need to fight together and keep working collectively. I would like that we keep in touch because this is very inspiring. Thank you so much.
And I hope it was possible to interpret it because the sound was cutting a bit once in a while. So thank you, Juan Luis, for that extra effort. I would like to pass on to Geoffrey.
Thank you so much for this wonderful meeting. Geoffrey, I'm based in Kampala, Uganda. My concern is only about the funding mechanisms of some of these development projects. As you may be aware, World Bank pulled out from funding any project in Uganda. And what does that mean? It means that the country is is moving more and more towards China. And we have had previously challenges with development projects that are funded by China because they do not have safeguard mechanisms, and you cannot engage them in any way. I was wondering because I would imagine that some of the funding that will go for this airport, like it is with Entebbe International Airport in Uganda, could come from China. And engaging these companies may be a big challenge. What advice would you give to our sisters and brothers in Kasese, just in case such a worst case scenario happened? How do they engage such a companies? I think that is one of the biggest challenges that they are that will mostly likely be of a challenge to them. Thank you.
Thanks for the question. I would like to ask Kwame if, for instance, like if you would like to share a bit your perspective on this question, also to not talk much more.
Yeah. I think funding mechanism is always a problem, since some funding are not respecting the community's rights. For instance, if you see the World Bank project or infrastructure projects in Africa, there are some standards, but still they don't care of some communities' rights. If we look at the Chinese project as well, the Belt and Road Initiative projects, they are also involved very much in infrastructure construction. But still, the communities are suffering from those investments. So in terms of tourism development in regard to those funding, we need to pay attention, because as some governments, or all of them actually, proposing tourism as things that is good for the country, or things that's good for communities to learn from other culture or to gain revenue. I think this is dangerous for us to continue in that in that direction. So what we need is to continue to raise awareness on the danger of tourism, so communities understand why we are against tourism development at some point. What's happening in Cuba, for instance, I have been there and I see the impact of tourism on the development of the economy. So you can see that there is a currency for tourists, and there is a currency for people locally. So it was strange for me to see that, but for some communities, for some people, they used to it, but I think it's wrong. It's wrong because it's also a form of domination. Tourism can bring domination. What we have seen in Kasese, for instance, is a form of domination. The communities are being dominated by the government and also by the investors. So that just a bit of reflection on the funding, actually. Thank you.
And now I think Samuel wants to say something from Kasese. Samuel, feel free to. Just taking a while, I guess, to unmute. So I don't think because, well, Edwin, are you with Samuel or someone that could unmute the room so someone could share something about the airport being built in Hoima, Uganda's region rich in oil and gas?
Daniela, he's in Hoima, so he's telling me he's trying to connect. He's speaking it, but he's telling me his voice is not, we're not hearing him out. I think I'm trying to tell him to unmute.
Yeah, but so I guess is okay, he's now connecting. Yeah. Samuel, can you hear us? I'll try to activate your mic. It's really a pity if we cannot hear you because I think you have a very, very good point to share. You have to unmute yourself. I think it's the only thing that it's not working. And yeah, Edwin, in case Samuel cannot really share his point, maybe you could potentially try to summarize and bring his point to us. I know that you are knowledgeable about that case of the Hoima airport.
Samuel, can you speak now? Speak.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, my name is Samuel Abedilembe, and I'm based in Hoima district, where Kabalega airport is being constructed, and we hope they are about to commission it in this October, the coming month. But amid the city, we have got a lot of challenges that we as a community staying nearby the activity of airport construction is taking place.
Edwin, can you just ask Samuel to speak a bit slower? I think it would be easier to understand because of the sound quality.
Okay, Samuel, can you speak slowly, please?
I speak slowly?
Yes.
I speak slowly. I'm not speaking a loud voice, eh?
No, you should not speak so fast.
Okay. Okay. Oh, thank you very much. I was like saying, my name is Samuel Abedilembe, and I'm based in Hoima district, where Kabarega International Airport is being constructed. And right now, the work has reached over 97%, and they are about to commission it in the coming month of October. While we as communities neighboring the Kabarega International Airport, we have so far facing a number of challenges. One among them is the sound from the stone blast, that is from the stone quarry, where that quarrying at the stone, construction of international airport. Now, the other challenge again is high vibration. The high vibration from the heavy machines, and that vibration, another vibration. This has caused a lot of challenges and problems in quality health in the community. Some people living nearby the activity is taking place. have got health problems like related to heart disease, which doesn't need such much sound. But the government has not put that into consideration to come and identify people who don't need such heavy vibration, people who don't need such sound to stay nearby the airport. And another challenge is we are here, we have got very many activities that have come up as a result of the international airport in Uganda. One like in Hoima, I think that the 13 villages were affected in 2012.
Sorry for the interruption, but a lot of people are saying that they cannot really follow because the sound is not good. I'm just wondering, Edwin, if you could maybe share or highlight a bit of Samuel just said, and maybe add the bits that you are aware of. Otherwise, it's just not possible for us to understand, and it's a pity to not listen to that message that we know that is important.
Okay, okay, Daniel, what Samuel is trying to say is the development of this airport, first of all, was not there. It has really been developed because of the oil and gas sector that is currently being developed in the country. They're building this airport because they believe it will help in carrying expatriates to the Albertine region. This is the region that is rich in oil and gas in Uganda. They also believe to help in bringing in food and so many other things. So that's why it was being constructed. But Samuel is one of the community affected persons that has been affected by the pipeline, and also has also been affected by the airport. Actually, he's affected by two pipelines and then the airport. One of the pipeline gets the oil from the oil wells, and then the second pipeline gets it from the central processing facility as it goes to Tanzania. So when I visited their communities, they really shared all these challenges because some of them were relocated and they're having issues to access to health. They are now being forced to walk long distances so that they can go to the nearest health center. They have challenges with the water. And then they also raise the question specifically on the airport. You know, it is something new in their community. They were worried about the noise that these planes are going to create because the government hasn't really come out to explain to them that, hey, when you stay at the airport, closer to the airport, these are the things you should expect. They feel the government is really not taking a very big step in explaining to them the health risks that come along when you stay closer to the airport. And secondly, most of the information that has so far been released, it's written in English, and this is a community where people are not really educated. They're not able to read English as a language. So these were some of the challenges that Samuel's community shared with me when I was there.
Thank you very much. And I hope that after the webinar, also to make that visible, we can also collect the full testimony from Samuel, so we can include this in also the summary of this webinar and put it up into our website with a blog post article and really disseminate the knowledge. I'm wondering if there are more people willing to comment or ask questions. So initially we planned with 1.5 hour webinar, but we also said that we can be a bit flexible and be here a bit more, also a bit longer to listen to questions that people in Kasese would have for us. So if you still have questions, we'll be glad to hear them. And that also applies to the speakers, Kwame and Gabriela, if you still want to add something that you now feel that was that you would like to share and you didn't have the opportunity while you're speaking, feel free to jump in. Finlay.
Yeah, thank you. I was wondering about when there's an airport expanded, that means there needs to be more fossil fuels, oil delivered for the planes to burn. So I was wondering, is it clear or has it been communicated to you whether there'll be like new pipelines and do you know if it's going to be from like local fossil fuel reserves or the new East African oil pipeline that's being proposed, or if they're going to import it from somewhere else, or yeah, do you have any details about that?
That's for you, Edwin, because Samuel is not with us. I don't know if you know how to reply to this question.
I can jump in now. Okay, thanks, Finley, for the question. First of all, the East African oil pipeline is going to transport the oil from Hoima to Port Tanga in Tanzania. And this is which basically means the oil from Uganda is going to be sent into the world market and to be refined, then it will come back as jet fuel, it will come back as petrol and diesel for us to consume back in Uganda. So we have not received information that part of the oil from Uganda is going to directly go to the airport. It has to be processed and then sent back into, maybe then taken into the airport. What we have so far had is they will get part of this oil and then make petrochemicals, those raw materials that are needed, that are gotten from oil to make other products. For example, plastics, body jellies. That's what that's what Uganda will be able to make for now. But Uganda has plans of saying of refining oil later within Uganda, within the Ugandan spaces. But we are seeing this as something that is going to be impossible because more countries are really getting interested in connecting their pipelines onto the EACOP. We heard that the Eastern DRC is also trying to connect the EACOP, and then Southern Sudan is also trying to connect to the EACOP. So we don't see any chances of Uganda refining its oil within its borders. So at the end of the day, it's going to go to either some other country, refine the oil, then import it back into Uganda for use. That's what we have for now.
Thank you. Yeah, we see also how the aviation industry intersects with the oil and gas industry and how it depend on each other. And it's important also to understand how different movements can understand that we are the same movement and fight together. I've heard that some people in Kasese need to leave now-ish soon. So I think it's also a good reason to maybe to come to a closure and understand and then reflect on what has been discussed today and bring these reflections forward in further actions. And I also invite everyone that joined here today, the ones that are not joining from Uganda, also to understand how you can support from your countries. And please feel free to write me, then I can redirect you to Edwin and all people organizing in Kasese. I think this is also the goal of these webinars, that people are aware and then become active in supporting other people's struggles. And yeah, thank you very much. I don't know if there are any closing remarks. I don't think so. So yeah, thanks for being
Muito
here.
obrigado, Daniela.
Thank you. And yeah, hope to see you soon.
Muchas
and
gracias, Gabriela, por el testimonio.
Thank you, Gabriela, for your words. Thank you for the opportunity. we will be in touch. So thank you, everybody, especially to our friends in Kasese in Uganda. Thank you.
Let's keep in touch.
Bye-bye.